Coming up on Locked On Bearcats, the Bearcats 2022 football schedule was released last week. I'll give you my thoughts on that in segment one, then a recap from this past weekend. And Bearcats men's basketball, it just keeps on being a struggle for the Bearcats on the hardwood. And Bearcats baseball, what a series, an entertaining series down in Fort Myers, Florida for Bearcats baseball. We'll spend a little bit of time on that. All of that coming up on today's episode of Locked On Bearcats.
Locked On Bearcats, your daily podcast on the Cincinnati Bearcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Bearcats your first listen of every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Alex Frank here with you on this Monday, February 21st of 2022. Happy President's Day to all of you out there. The Bearcats football schedule was released last week, so we're going to get to that here right off the bat. Men's basketball and a little bit on Bearcats baseball just because of the entertaining series. And quite frankly, when the Bearcats go to the Big 12, yes, football and men's basketball will dominate this show, but we'll mix in some other sports too, because when you go to a Power 5 conference, every sport matters, I feel like. Not that every sport doesn't matter right now, but it'll matter even more once we get to the Big 12. So the final season potentially for the Bearcats in the American Athletic Conference, Justin Williams wrote recently that the Bearcats, all signs pointing to 2023, that the Bearcats will move to the Big 12. So this could be the final season for the Bearcats in the American Athletic Conference on the football side. And we have the schedule that's been released. Highlights the season opener, of course, at Arkansas, Saturday of Labor Day weekend. The Bearcats will then come home for the home opener against Kennesaw State. Week 3 will be the battle for the Victory Bell. So Saturday, September 17th, against Miami of Ohio at Paul Brown Stadium. That'll be the site for the battle for the Victory Bell. Week 4 against Indiana in Nippert Stadium. The Bearcats played in Bloomington last year, beat the Hoosiers, of course, in a marquee game, one of the two games the Bearcats fans really had circled on their calendars. Week 5 is the conference opener. That is at Tulsa, a conference opening road game. First time that's the case for Cincinnati since 2017 when they opened the conference play at Navy. And then week 6, homecoming. That's against South Florida. That'll be on October the 8th. And then senior day will be on November 26th or 25th. It'll be either on Black Friday or on Saturday after Thanksgiving. So on either Black Friday or the Saturday after Thanksgiving, that'll be against Tulane. That, of course, will be senior day. And if the Bearcats, I didn't put this in my notes, but if the Bearcats do qualify for the AAC championship game, if they have one of the top 2 records in the American, they will play in the AAC championship game. That'll be on Saturday, December the 3rd, at the home venue of the team with the best record in the American Athletic Conference. The Bearcats have hosted the conference championship game each the last 2 years. They've been to the last 3. Will they make it 3 straight home AAC championship games and 4 straight AAC championship game appearances? We'll find out. This could be the last year in the conference for Cincinnati. They, along with UCF, Cincinnati has the most championships. If you think about it, they've won 3. UCF has won, if you go by just when the American Conference Championship game was established back in 2015, Cincinnati and UCF each have 2. But Cincinnati has appeared in the most conference championship games with 3. So they can really leave their mark in this conference. That's going to be a topic for a show later this week as we approach the start of football season. Anyway, which, by the way, I was so bored this weekend without football. So bored. In fact, I've been watching old games on old Super Bowl classics on NFL Network. I even did a Bengals schedule prediction 1.0 where who I think the Bengals will play in each week of the season, and if it's a primetime game or a 425 game. Anyway, the Bearcats schedule for football next year. I don't love it. I don't love it. There's no Houston, there's no Memphis, which I think are two of the better teams in this conference. And Houston, obviously, last year gave the Bearcats a pretty good game in the AAC championship game for at least the first half. And, even though Cincinnati went on a rampage to start the third quarter, it wasn't like it was they did a whole lot after that offensively. In fact, Houston did a really good job stymieing the Bearcats. Houston got another touchdown late and held the Bearcats scoreless in the fourth quarter. That could be a tough matchup. Houston was a young team last year. They're getting better this year. Only one golden opportunity on the schedule for a signature win. That's at Arkansas. And if you don't win that game, the rest of the season becomes boring, A, because you're going to be out of the college football playoff, and B, who else do you really play besides Arkansas? Who else are you going to really get up for as a fan? Not being at home for a month after homecoming, there's a bye week, and then the Bearcats go to SMU and UCF the last two Saturdays of October. The SMU and UCF being back-to-back on the road, that's a gauntlet. I mean, when was the last time the Bearcats had a 2-game road stretch like that? That was a gauntlet. They could have had it with Tulsa and SMU in October of 2020, but the Tulsa game was canceled, postponed, and then the Bearcats ended up not playing until October 24th of that year in the COVID truncated season against SMU. 2018, they won 2 Temple and SMU. That wasn't really that much of a gauntlet. I don't remember the last time the Bearcats had a 2-game road trip like that. SMU is going to be tough. I know they're losing a lot from this year, but, that's been an opponent that has given Cincinnati some trouble over the years, the last 2 years notwithstanding. And then UCF, whenever you go to UCF, where the Bearcats have struggled, and they barely pulled out a win in 2020. That's not going to be an easy game. And then the other thing I don't like is, the things I liked about the schedule in 2019 was it bounced around from Thursday the first week, Saturday the next week, Friday was the UCF game, another Friday game against Memphis late in the season, then Saturday the next week, and then last year you had a Saturday game in Notre Dame, then Friday, then another Friday game at USF, and another Friday game at ECU. So just that, there's only one game potentially that's not going to be on a Saturday, and that's the ECU game, which is on Veterans Day, the 11th of November. The Tulane game could be on Black Friday, and I think if the Bearcats are doing well, I think that game will be. I think that could be a good draw for a 3:30 game on ABC, like they've played 2 of the last 3 Black Fridays. So there isn't a lot to like, but the silver lining here is that this is the Bearcats' final year in the American Athletic Conference. Arkansas is great, but that's the first game of the season. So, in essence, the season comes down, not in essence, the season, and if the Bearcats are going to get back to the college football playoff, which I don't think is impossible, if the Bearcats go into Fayetteville and win against Arkansas, it is going to be very difficult, I believe, if the Bearcats then finish undefeated at 13-0 with a win in Arkansas, with an AAC championship win, and likely that'll be against Houston, maybe Memphis or UCF, teams like that. I think it's going to be very, very difficult for the College Football Playoff Committee to leave Cincinnati out of the playoff, given that they will have gone 13-0 with an SEC road win, a true road win against an SEC team. And given that they made the playoff last year, they beat Notre Dame, they gave Alabama a mostly competitive game. That was 17-6 going into the fourth quarter. If they go 13-0 again and they made the playoff last year, can you really lead them out again? Now, if there are more Power 5 teams this year than there were last year they're deserving, that's understandable. I'm not sure if fans in Cincinnati will quite understand that. I may be among those fans, but I think there is every reason to believe that Cincinnati should be considered highly if they beat Arkansas week 1 and then run the table the rest of the way, which I don't like that there's not really another game to look forward to, but that should mean the Bearcats go undefeated, right? It should mean the Bearcats go undefeated and make the college football playoff. Potentially. So that's what I like about the schedule is after Arkansas, what game scares you? There really isn't a game that scares me. They can go undefeated and they can host a championship game again. That's Bearcats football, and of course, we'll have much more on that leading up to the season. The Combine next week, the NFL draft approaching, the Bearcats and the pros. A lot more on that. Bearcats basketball played 2 games over the weekend. Well, really one Thursday night, which is kind of the weekend, and yesterday afternoon, which that was just brutal. This team is struggling, and I'll get to my thoughts on it next here on Locked On Bearcats. But first, I got to tell you about BetOnline.net because football might be over for this season, but basketball is in full steam for both pro and college hoops. From all the latest odds, totals, player performance props to where the next fired coach is going to land, BetOnline.net is the number one spot for all your sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline.net is your source for hockey, boxing, and UFC odds right to the Olympic coverage and information. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Thanks for making Locked On Bearcats your first listen of every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. I was going to get a little hydration in between each segment. Alex Frank here with you on this Monday, President's Day, February 21st of 2022. Bearcats basketball played 2 games over the weekend. They played Thursday night. They beat Wichita State 85-76, but then lost to Temple yesterday afternoon 75-71. The Bearcats currently 17-10 on the season, 7-10 in AAC play. That is good for 7th in the AAC right now. If the season ended today, the Bearcats would be the number 7 seed in the tournament. They would be facing Tulsa in the first round. If they win that game, they would play SMU in the quarterfinals, which I might take my chances on that game considering Cincinnati beat SMU earlier this season. And that does add to the frustration of what this season has been for Cincinnati. This team what has happened? They have now been swept by Temple. Temple used to be a team that, yes, would give Cincinnati a lot of problems, but the Bearcats would handle them sometimes with relative ease, and sometimes they would just find a way to win. But now they can't even beat Temple? And I don't mean any disrespect towards Temple, but this is a program that in Cincinnati that should beat the teams they're supposed to beat. Remember the 5 things I laid out for how this team can get to the NCAA tournament. Number 1, beat the teams you're supposed to beat. Well, since the end of January, they have lost to Temple. They have lost at Tulsa. They have lost at home against Memphis. And they have lost at home to Temple. They are 3-5 in their last 8 games, plummeting from the top of the conference to just in the middle of the conference. And I mean just barely. They are number 7 right now in the AAC, meaning they're playing on Thursday in the quarterfinals of the AAC tournament. Like, this is not good. This is just I, last year's season. I get it was frustrating too. The Bearcats weren't very good, but that was a weird season for every team. Kentucky wasn't very good. Duke wasn't very good. Um, Michigan State had a down year. North Carolina wasn't really that good either. A lot of teams that you expect to be good weren't. But the Bearcats, like, where was this team that was 5-0 and that played with such confidence, such looseness? They played free. They just went out there and played basketball. And I thought after the Arkansas game, like, yeah, this team is real. This team can be really good. This team can be an NCAA tournament team. Dan Hort came on this show back in December and said that he thinks this team can make the NCAA tournament. And it's so frustrating to think about what's happened since then. They've lost games to Monmouth. They got hammered by Xavier. They lost to Tulane. They lost a heartbreaker at Memphis. Then they lose an ugly one against Temple. They lose at Tulsa, which should never have happened. They let Memphis come in and just shoot the lights out against them. And then yesterday's game against Temple, the Owls, who aren't a really good shooting team, they come in and they shoot 15 of 27 in the first half, 8 for 10 from 3. And the Bearcats shoot just 34.3% for the game. They were 8 of 32 from 3. Like, this team, they don't know who they are. They play hard. That's fine. But as Colin Cowherd said last year on his show when he was talking about the Dallas Cowboys, what's their identity? They play hard. That's a good identity to have. But that's a good characteristic to have. That's a good trait to have. But it's not a good identity. What's this team's identity? Well, they're a really good defensive team. They lock down. They force you into bad shots. Well, they're efficient on offense. They, are a really good three-point shooting team where they pound it in the paint. There's no identity. They've had 4 games where they make 10 threes this season, and then another game where they don't, and they don't shoot well outside of that. They don't have a big man that can man the paint inside on offense, get those easy buckets, get the tough shots to fall, get to the line to create and one opportunities. They don't have that. They are simply not a good basketball team. They don't have that alpha that just leads them to victory against teams they should be and then leads them into battle against the, upper echelon teams in their conference like Houston over the years. Like, the Bearcats are on pace to finish 7th in the AAC, which would be their worst finish since joining the conference, and it'd be their worst conference finish since 2011 when they were in the Big East. Fun fact, they still made the tournament in 2011. And the tournament, I mean the NCAA tournament, and I shouldn't have even had to clarify that, but I did anyway just because, maybe you were wondering what I meant by the tournament. But, like, they're 3-5 in their last 8 games. And by the way, if you want to say this team's identity is they play defense, really? They gave up 77.3 points per game over the homestand of 3 games. 81 to Memphis, 76 to Wichita State, 75 to Temple. That's not playing defense. That's not the hallmark of this program. What was on display this week against Temple, Wichita State, and Memphis. On Thursday, by the way, the Bearcats led big early. They only won the game by 9, and the Shockers still managed to shoot 44.6% from the floor for the game. Cincinnati, in contrast, had their best shooting night of the season. That's why they won. But it doesn't happen consistently. One game we think that if it carries over, great, but it doesn't. They're all over the place. They do one thing really well one game, another thing really well another game, but they just don't put it. They haven't put it all together. And I said last week, maybe there's a late season run within this team. Maybe next week they go to UCF on Wednesday and win that game and go on a roll. They come home for their final home game, senior night, Saturday night against USF. They win that game, and they carry some momentum into a Texas road trip that can either make or break them. It can doom their season or it can galvanize them. Excuse me, and they can rally and somehow get back to the end and somehow get in a position they're going to have to win 4 games in 4 days. And then, so Jaron Cumberland, was at the game yesterday wearing a shirt that said stressed and depressed. Well, okay, that somewhat applies to this program right now. You're depressed as a fan because normally this time of year, you're gearing up for the NCAA tournament. You're wondering where the Bearcats are going to play, who they're going to play, what their 14 bracket's going to look like. If they win their first round game, who could they play in the second round game, and is it a beatable opponent? Instead, we're not wondering about that. We're just, we're wondering, how is the rest of the season going to play out? Where are where's this program going from here? Are they going to be better next year? Are they going to get worse next year? We don't know. We just don't know. But one thing is clear. This program is a long way away from where it was if you're losing to Temple. If you're losing to Temple twice in a season, man, where is this program gone? In the first half, yesterday afternoon, Temple was 15 of 27 from the floor, 8 of 10 from 3. Mind you, this Temple Owls team was missing 4 of their best scorers. They spread the ball around. 10 or more points for 5 different players yesterday. Hyzier Miller, Ty Strickland, Jaleel White, Zach Hicks, and Damian Dunn. Dunn with 15. Hicks with 16, including 4 threes. Miller with 13 and 3 threes. Strickland with 11, and then Jaleel White with 10. And all of them were very efficient. Sans maybe Damian Dunn was 4 of 12, but he did make 7 of 10 free throws. Rebound battle yesterday, Temple won 43-39 and by the way, Wichita State out-rebounded Cincinnati by 8 on Thursday. So this team is just, they're just not very good. This is not the standard of Bearcats basketball. They are now at the bottom of the middle in a mid-major conference. That does not happen to Cincinnati basketball. This is not who Cincinnati basketball is. And it sucks being in this position. 1 month ago, this program had just scored 90 points in a win over Tulsa, which I know Tulsa is not very good. Then again, the Bearcats did lose to them. This program was in a really good spot. They were going to Temple and ECU, and I'm like, okay, win those 2 road games, set yourselves up well for a homestand with Memphis and Houston, and then they go into Temple and blow a 12-point lead, barely escape ECU, get pummeled at home by Houston, go on the road, and bounce back against USF, but then they just get clobbered, and then they just get shot down by Tulsa. I mean, this cannot keep happening. And I don't know if it's going to get better this year or next year when the Bearcats move to the Big 12. It's a concern. I need a break. First, though, I got to tell you, or I shouldn't say a break, because we don't take breaks here on the Locked On Podcast Network. But right now, I'm going to tell you that this is the time of year that I've pretty much given up on all of my New Year's resolutions, but not this year because I'm going to stick to it thanks to Built Bar. Built Bars, it doesn't really feel like a resolution because I actually enjoy eating them. Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. They're low calorie, they're high in protein, so you can replace your candy bars with these. They're better because a typical candy bar can be anywhere from 200 to 300 calories. Built Bars only contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and net carbs each, and they also contain 17 grams of protein. At Built Bar, they're all about the taste. They make it taste delicious first, then figure out how to make it healthy. And I don't know how, but they pull it off every time. Go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order at Built.com. Once again, thank you for making Locked On Bearcats your first listen of every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Alex Frank here with you on this Monday, February 21st of 2022. So Bearcats baseball got underway this weekend, and they were at Florida Gulf Coast, and what a wild series it was. What a wild series. The Bearcats split the series with the Eagles, won the first two, dropped the last two. But the final scores of all four games: 9-6 in game one, Bearcats win. 15-14 in 11 innings, game one of a doubleheader. Bearcats win that game. They lose game two of the doubleheader Saturday, 10-5. Then they lose 16-8 in game four yesterday. So they split the series with the Eagles. Florida Gulf Coast outscored the Bearcats 46-37, but the Bearcats had more hits, 50-41. And there are just so many things that made this series wild. Florida Gulf Coast had 6 errors on Friday, 4 more in the first game of the doubleheader Saturday. They finished with 16 in the series. Game two itself, that 15-14, 11-inning game, Florida Gulf Coast led 5-0. Then the Bearcats eventually led 9-7. They took a 14-9 lead into the bottom of the ninth. FGCU scored 5 runs to tie it. Bearcats scored in the 11th to win it. 497 combined pitches thrown in the game, 98 combined at bats, 39 players used, 29 runs scored, 32 hits, 27 combined runners left on base. The big three for Cincinnati, their first team All-AAC outfield, Paul Gomistek, he was 10 for 20 in the series, 2 home runs, 6 RBIs. Griffin Merritt was 7 of 16, 3 home runs, 6 RBIs. And then Cole Harding struggled in the series, 3 for 16, but he did get on base via a walk 3 times. There was Griffin Merritt was interviewed after game one on Friday. The Bearcats won 9-6. And Andy Nagel, who broadcasts all the games for Bearcats baseball, I believe, he does some with Matt Noonan. Andy asked him about this team and their ability to, compete 9 in and 9 out. And Griffin said that he's never been on a team this close, with this great group of guys that, they come ready to play. And he said there's a culture being assembled here. And I love that answer because, and I think culture does maybe get overused in sports, but I don't think that's a bad thing because I think it's so important. You see teams who win, they have great cultures. The Rams won the Super Bowl this year. They have a great culture. The Bengals went to the Super Bowl. They have a great culture now. Tampa Bay had a great culture last year. The Chiefs 2 years ago. New England, when they won their 6 Super Bowls in 18 years, they had a great culture because they weren't intimidated by anything. They kept everything in-house. They were drama-free. And that's why they were able to win 6 Super Bowls in 18 years. You think about the Falcons and their mantra of brotherhood in 2016. It got them to a Super Bowl. The culture cannot be overstated in sports. And you see what Scott Googins has done with Bearcats baseball. It is remarkable. He is, taking a program that I'm not sure if, how many people cared about in it as opposed to football and men's basketball. And within 45 years, and within, 2 years, he took the Bearcats to the NCAA tournament for the first time in 45 years. People started to take notice. Like, that was, in essence, the Bearcats' arrival. That was their, that the program had arrived. It's very similar to what Luke Fickell did for football. It's just that many people didn't really know about the baseball program. Like I said, when I was at UC, I'm like, why isn't Bearcats baseball bigger than this? I mean, you're in a baseball city. Ian Happ, Kevin Youkilis have played for that program. Like, why aren't we, making a big deal out of this? It's a big deal that we have a college baseball team in Cincinnati, in addition to the Reds and high school baseball and the high school showcase. And Scott Guggens has just assembled this culture. Like, the Bearcats trailed 5-0 against, or 6-0 rather, in the third game of that series on Saturday, or it might have been 5-0. They roared back, lost 10-5. Might have been 7-0. I'll have to look back at the box score, but game 4 they were down big. They roared back and made it a 13-8 game before the Eagles ultimately put it away and won 16-8. That's a team that competes, and it's so funny how I go back to a university or a professional team in a city that takes on the city's identity. I think that's what the Bearcats baseball team is doing. Like, hey, we're going to compete every single night. We're going to we have some talent. We're going to represent our city, and that's what you love if you're a Bearcats fan. It's like, yeah, you love your football, you love your men's basketball, but now you have a baseball program that's in great hands with a head coach, and that wasn't really known a few years ago when Scott Guggens took over. But you make an NCAA tournament, you rename your stadium. The charge led by Nathan Moore to do that in the face of the movement for social justice. They renamed the stadium Bearcat Stadium. It's simple. It's not controversial. You've established a healthy culture. Luke Fickell's done it. I think Wes Miller's going to do it on the men's basketball side. He just has to get the talent to show that. And this is a university where you are proud now to be a fan of your athletic teams. You love Bearcats football for their culture and Luke Fickell. You love men's basketball because Wes Miller understands what this program is all about. It may not be, where you want it to be this year, but it could be next year. And hopefully once the Bearcats move into the Big 12, it will be even bigger than that. And you love baseball because you love baseball in Cincinnati and the simplicity of a baseball game. Down here in Macon, Georgia, where I just moved to start a new job, and I've carried my Bearcats pride with me everywhere I go, and my Houday Nation pride too. I went to 2 Mercer baseball games this weekend, and college baseball just, especially down here in the South, you have, Mercer's baseball field is so great because there's a lawn beyond the outfield wall. You don't have to, it's not within the stadium, but you can, for free, you can walk there. You can, set up your lawn chairs, sit back and, watch a baseball game for free. And you have a pretty good view of it. It's in the outfield. And, fans will bring their dogs. I mean, heck, I saw 2 groups of fans bring their own couches to the games. That's actually true. And I'm like, college baseball. There's no lockout here. And I know my former colleague at iHeart, Jeff Carr of Locked On Reds, he might hate me for saying this, but right now, college baseball, a little more interesting than Major League Baseball. There's no drama. It's fun. Teams are, you're watching college athletes. They're still kids and they're playing, a game that's very, very simple, baseball. And you're just enjoying a nice, early spring day. You're sitting outside. You're with fans. In the South here, it's, very communal, just like it is in Cincinnati with baseball. That's fun, man. That's fun. We're going to have some more fun this week here on Locked On Bearcats. More on the Bearcats football schedule, more on leading up to the Combine, more on leading up to Bearcats hopefully going pro in the NFL draft coming up. More on men's basketball, 2 big games this week again at UCF Wednesday and then at home against USF on Saturday. Remember the crosstown shootout brawl 10 years ago? That's an obvious question. You do. Well, we saw something very similar, not very similar, but something similar, somewhat, this past weekend from the University of Michigan and their head coach Juwan Howard. If you saw what happened, he at the time that I recorded this, we don't know what's going to happen with him, but we'll touch on that. We'll reminisce on the crosstown shootout brawl and back to a point I made earlier this season about what a head coach means to a program and university. And a very prominent college basketball insider agrees with me on it. So that's going to do it for us here today on Locked On Bearcats. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On NFL Draft. Ryan Tracy and former NFL cornerback Eric Crocker bring the NFL Draft to life every day with insight and analysis on college football prospects and NFL front offices. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And for Locked On Bearcats, I'm Alex Frank. You can follow me on Twitter at Frankie_90 with 2 N's, NNATI. You can also follow me on Instagram, AlexFrank9_, and email me at alex3frank@gmail.com. All lowercase, Alex, the number 3, Frank@gmail.com. Thank you again for making Locked On Bearcats your first listen of every day. For Locked On Bearcats, I'm Alex Frank, and I will talk to you all tomorrow.